outside of myself, and so it's interesting to hear people's perspective. And then you were like, really? You care what people think? And I'm like,
oh, right.
Yeah, it's like, oftentimes you want to hear some feedback, because how do you know that, your intentions and all the things that you aspire to be, how do you know if it lands?
Yeah. But is that in the realm of caring what people think about you? A little bit.
Yeah. So we've had that conversation. I think that I think everybody cares to a degree. I think you can't lead with it can't be your motivation. Other folks' perspective can't be the motivation.
I don't think it falls into the realm of caring what people think. I think it falls in the realm of your integrity, showing up as you see yourself.
Yeah.
Or showing up as you intend to show up. So are your intentions and the perception of you, are they aligned?
Yeah.
So it's more of an integrity thing than really caring about what people think, to me.
Yeah, I don't know how you tell the difference, but
because it's going back to you. Like, you care about how it's caring about your intentions and caring about how you act on your intentions, versus the receiver. You know what I mean? Like, it's more of an I statement versus a you statement.
right. So I guess we happened upon this conversation because I was feeling like, or I was grappling with getting feedback about perceptions, I guess, or who I am and how we don't get a good sense of who we are and how it lands. And so, and oftentimes we don't check in with others to get feedback.
Yeah.
And so I was just like wondering one day, like, what does that look like? What does that feedback look like?
Like how? Well, I think so. Does it matter where the sources of the feedback? Excuse me.
Yeah, I guess.
Because if it's just some random person, do you take that at face value, or do you say, is it more, I don't know, is it more evident if it comes from someone who you value their opinion, or someone who knows you better?
I think it depends, because I think when people know you, they give you what they think you want to hear, or what.
You think I do that?
Not in a bad sense. Like, I think that
I don't think we do that to each other, actually.
to a degree. I mean, at least, well, I'll say from my perspective, using I statements, to a degree, if I know that you're dealing with something in a specific moment, and I may have some critique, I may hold the critique because I know you're dealing with something. So I wouldn't,
Yeah, Jamie does that too, with me.
Yeah, and so there is some levels.
Because I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why you and Jamie do that, because I get overwhelmed with shit. And then I don't really receive it that way.
And I think we do that with folks we care about, period. So getting feedback from close relationships versus those who don't know you, I think it varies. Because I will say this, like, when you get feedback from people who don't know you, but you may value.
I take it in, but I kind of parse it and decide what I'm gonna do with it.
Yeah. I know how we got on this conversation.
Okay, hold up. So let's go back. So I am Scott, and this is my best friend Wendell, and on my YouTube channel. You probably landed here because of Craig, the writer Stewart. Wendell and I are vacationing on Martha's Vineyard, and we decided to have a porch talk about our friendship and just shit that we have. We have in-depth conversations practically every other day on the phone for 2 to 3 hours when we should be working. So if you're our bosses or our clients and you're watching this, ignore that part. And so we jumped into a conversation and without any introduction. So there's the introduction, and we'll resume our conversation.
Yeah, so to step back, we were having this conversation because I'm mentoring a small business owner.
Yeah.
And as I'm mentoring her, first of all, we both didn't understand how we got connected, because there was a pool of folks who, small business owners, as well as a pool of those who were acting as mentors. And so someone connected each mentor and mentee. And so we didn't understand why they connected to both of us. Until we got to know each other better, then we were just like, oh, we get it. Like, there's something deeper than anybody knew. And so I was sharing with you how I'm having this sense of, or some of our conversations were around the mentor-mentee situation, were around being seen and heard, and how sometimes we plateau where we are in life, and some of that is because we feel like we lose sight of ourselves, and oftentimes we don't get a lot of feedback, because when you're good at what you do and you really,
some of it also is you're just tired, and you don't want to push you don't want to push yourself. You don't want to. You're just tired. Like, you're tired of being introspective. You're tired of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's some of that too. Like, what we specifically were talking about is how the pandemic has changed so much around us.
Yeah.
And then just trying to get proper footing, because we see so much change, and because we're people who are doers, both me and my mentee, we feel like we need to do something with everything, and it's just overwhelming. And so now we're kind of stepping back, saying, just doing some basic stuff like, who are we, where do we want to be, where we're going, as opposed to letting all the stuff around us guide us. Yeah. And so that's where I was just like, you know what, I don't get a lot of feedback, honest feedback, from my coworkers or friends, really, about...
Well, so let me ask you a question. So when I said to you, I don't know, a few weeks ago, months ago maybe, and I said something, I'm paraphrasing, but something around the fact of, I don't know this Wendell. Like, this is, because that's kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who you are in this moment because you're not responding in the way that I typically know you to respond.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really understand. For me, like, it was confusing because I didn't know how to show up for you as a friend, other than to say that. Like, because to me, that's kind of feedback. Like, I'm not really sure what's going on, or why you're navigating this situation this particular way.
Yeah. So I'll answer the question, and then we can get to how you responded and how I received it. I think that where I find myself is I think I plateaued where I am, and I think there is...
You're talking about work?
Just life.
Oh, okay.
In general, work included. And I've not thought about where I go from here. I think maybe, up until now, I've always had a plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or some idea of where I was going and how I was going to get there. And I think I've reached a lot of my goals, dreams, aspirations. Actually, I know I have, and life and over the last several years, I've just let life surprise me in amazing, beautiful ways. And so now I'm waking up from all of this fairy tale and like, okay, I need to figure out
What's next?
yeah, what's next for me, and where do I put my energy?
Yeah.
Where do I focus on? So I think that's where I find myself.
We're entering in our, I don't know, like the third phase of our life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like where we still work, but we're tired of working. We're ready to retire, but we don't. Well, at least for me, I don't know. Like my financial advisor says I don't have enough money to retire, but I want to retire. Like I don't want to work. So, yeah, it just feels like we're on the downslope, and it's a weird place to be because, again, like we're not retired.
Yeah.
But we're tired of working, so it's like figuring out this next phase. Because I'm dealing with that too, but in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you used the word downslope, and so that word.
Is that a bad word?
No, not really. And when you said it, it made me think how I've thought about the second phase of my life. I've saw it, kind of you have this plateau, and then from there you start doing less, spending less energy, like slowing down, and that to me doesn't seem like it needs to be mapped out. And so you don't think about what that, at least I've not thought about what that downslope looks like.
The only reason I say that is because when I asked my parents what they were going to do when they retired, they had a plan. Like they knew everything that they wanted to do. And I think the truth, and I use the word downslope because I think of life like when you're young and you're a child, you're going up the hill and you're getting educated, you're figuring out your life, who you want to be, you're acquiring all your values and beliefs and things, right? Like you're meeting your mate, you're dating, you're getting into your career, you're buying a house, buying a car, buying stuff. Yeah. And as you get here, then you, like where you're steady or whatever, and then you start to ramp down, like, like I'm sick of stuff. I don't need any more things. I don't need, I'm figuring out that my life is going to be slower and calmer, and I don't need all that shit. So I have to figure out what I want to get rid of and what I want to keep, and what my life is going to look like, where I'm going to live, be it in this country, be it in another country. Like it's all still planning, but I'm dropping stuff in my mind. Like that's why I say I'm on the downslope.
Yeah, I guess how I look at it, metaphor, like as you're growing up, you're packing the bags, and to gather or to attain things, knowledge, stuff requires effort and
tools,
education, all this stuff, whereas unpacking doesn't. It's just letting go. It doesn't. You don't need a roadmap to kind of let go.
But you don't need a roadmap, but you have to make decisions about which you want to let go.
Yeah.
And what you want to keep.
Yeah. For me, life. I guess so. Back to like kind of how I've been living my life. Life has been telling me what I need to get rid of and keep.
Oh, that's
like
interesting.
Things that I don't use or don't wear. It's like, get rid of it. Why do I still have it? Because more
I meant
requires
skills
more.
too. Like I meant, like, things that you may acquire at work that you may no longer need.
Yeah.
Skill sets or whatever.
Yeah.
All of that. Friends. Like
Yeah.
whatever. Husbands, wives, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, that you just need to get rid of. Stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, and when talking about people, so as you know, I don't think about getting rid of people. Just kind of how I sit.
And I do.
And I know.
I absolutely
That's
do.
why I'm calling it out.
Right.
But for me, those people will get rid of themselves. I don't have to get rid of them.
Well, and I try not to get rid of people anymore. I think of it like a theater. So, like, I have people on the front row, and there are people that I have ushered to the balcony, in the rear of the balcony.
Yeah.
So, I'm not escorting them out of the theater, but I'm not really there in cheap seats.
Yeah. And as you know, they work themselves to the back for me. And then when they realize that I see them, then they're surprised. When did I come get to the back seat? Really? You're surprised?
Right. Whereas they walk themselves to the back seat, whereas I had usher escort them to the back seat.
Exactly. Yeah, so I wanted to go back to the question or the comment you made around you not knowing, you're being unfamiliar with who I am or how I'm sort of showing
in
up
that
in
moment,
this moment.
Not who you are.
Yeah, and it was like, I think it sounds new because it's new to me, not having a roadmap and having all these questions about, or uncertainties about so much. But again, it feels like so much is changing around me. It feels unsettling. And typically I am a change agent.
Yeah.
But what's happening for me, or how I'm sitting in this moment, is it's just so much change, so much happening. And we don't, and while for so long I think we thought we had a good idea what the future looked like, today we just don't know.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, it's just changed so much.
Some of it for the better, though.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's just we give ourselves, one of the things that me and my mentee discussed is we've created a false sense of security in some ways.
Lots of people did that.
Yeah. And we felt comfortable where we were, pre-pandemic. Now, we're just like, we just have we realize we have no control, or it feels like we have no control.
It's one of the things, like, for years, I always kind of lived by the seat of my pants.
I haven't.
In the sense that, I would pick up and move and just kind of do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And, and I'm not complaining about that because I feel fortunate that I am able to do that. But as I think about it, I think that people struggle with that because it's that false sense of security where you plant these roots and you think that that's kind of forever, and it's not necessarily. And I don't think I struggle with that aspect of it because I've kind of just been like, if I decide next week I'm gonna move to, I don't know, Paris, like I just figure it out and make it happen. Whereas I don't think most people live like that. It's too much for them to think about stuff like that.
Yeah, we were talking when we had a similar conversation. We were just talking about like self-actualization.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas, most people, I'll say some people can't self-actualize because they're too focused on,
The details.
Housing and food and, like self-actualization feels like a luxury for some people.
Yeah.
And for me, in a lot of ways, that's why I've not been so, like, I've been intentional about every moment or had a roadmap because, I realized at a young age I couldn't go home. I didn't have parents to go home to. So I felt like I needed to be more, I couldn't, make a decision at a I couldn't just decide to go to Paris, as you mentioned, on a whim. I had to.
Is that an attack?
No, I'm just saying. For me, it felt like that would have been. I would have had to plan that out.
Oh, right.
Because if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work out, I can't go home.
Right.
That's how I always felt. Like
yeah. And to that point, I do think that's a good point because I do feel like, my parents and my family, like I always had a safety net around me.
Yeah.
To kind of just.
At least that's what you told yourself. Whether that's true or not, always, right?
Well, I think it's I mean, at 54, I hope it's not true, but. I mean, I'm sure it still is true, but
yeah.
I would hope that I would not be accessing or need that safety net.
Yeah.
I mean, but shit, you never know. Like, I mean, anything could happen and I could lose everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, but I think, but because of that, like, so even when we think about my suicide attempt, when I sold everything and just packed up and moved to Chicago, not really knowing anything.
Yeah.
What my life was going to look like, and I think because of that, like, I've just never been afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
I've taken risks, but I feel like they've always been calculated risks in that way. Like,
it's still a risk.
Yeah, like going into the military and deciding to get out and go to college. So having a job to becoming a full-time student, like, to me, that risk was still a little safe. It didn't feel like my military friends, when they talk to me about that moment, to them, they're like, oh my God, that was, really risky. And for me, I was just like, how? That was nothing.
Because you didn't know how it was going to pan out. Yeah?
I didn't, but I also knew that
there were no other options.
Yeah, like I was going to do whatever it took to get an education and get like I was clear about I was smart and I could make my way through college, like I was clear about that. I didn't have to guess.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it was as risky. I was like, the only reason I went to the military is so I could get the GI Bill to go to school. So it was just that was the only thing that was uncertain to me.
It was still a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, but even that felt safe for me. Even though I didn't have the family foundation to go back to, but that risk felt like a safe
so wait,
risk for me.
I'm gonna say the same thing you said to me. That's a story. Isn't that a story you told?
Yeah, it is.
That you didn't have your family.
It is.
Yeah. Because I'm sure you did. It didn't feel like it.
Yeah, I'm sure I did, but it wouldn't have been. It would have been a lot more to navigate. I would say it wouldn't have been as easy as mom and dad. I need a safe place, a cushion until I figure things out. It would have been, like...
Oh, it wouldn't have been that easy for me. Because it would have come with plenty of lectures.
I'm sure.
All kinds of discussions.
I'm sure. Yeah. No, but the story that you tell yourself is it would have been a harder conversation. And during the time I was, there were times I did need help. And of course... I had people that would have helped me if I, was just down and out. And I did have help. I don't want to sound like I didn't have help. I did have help. But, I don't know, tell the risk that I took felt safe to me versus
depending on someone else, because it was a risk of your own choice.
Yeah.
Versus involving other people.
Yeah. What was the point? What was the point of this conversation?
we were talking about change and how we got to like how the pandemic affected us and the choices we've made and how we don't have a plan right now and how we're used to planning.
Yeah.
And how well you're more used to planning than I am. But how we got here is because I mentioned that sometimes I have the ability to just be spontaneous.
Yeah.
And so I think that because I can do that, that has prepared me a little bit more than the average person than for change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spontaneous change rather.
Yeah.
Which I hate change too, which is really interesting. Like, because once I get into a routine, I'm in my routine, and I don't want anybody to come around and disrupt that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I was trying to make the point about you not recognizing me. I'm
right.
showing up different in this moment. It's just because I've just. It feels like too much around me has changed. I just don't know, because I haven't had a plan, it just feels unsettling to me. And I'm now having to take the time to figure out,
who you are now.
Yeah. And so that's how we got into the conversation about, I'm interested in people hearing from people.
Honestly, I think you're still the same person. I just think you're overwhelmed with work.
I think that's part of it. It's not all of it.
Because it doesn't feel like it shows up in your personal. It doesn't feel like it shows up in our friendship. I mean, only time I hear it or see it is when you're talking about work, and I sit on the phone kind of like, I don't know you. Like, I don't know why. Because I'm like, why didn't you just say this XYZ? And you're just kind of like, well, yeah. And I get all the reasons why you didn't say it, like everything that you've said and that I already knew. But I still am kind of like, but I know you to be a person who shows up no matter what. Like no matter the variables, you're still going to be true to your own self.
Yeah, I think work is just reflecting my own personal stuff. It's the example that's being used to kind of push me down this path of figuring out some stuff. Yeah.
I think that's true, like, because Craig always talks about how relationships do that.
Yeah.
Mirror
That's
stuff
right. It
back to
does. Oh my God. Yeah. Exactly.
So work is mirroring stuff back to you.
Exactly. I don't live in spaces that isn't, kind of showing me. Like, I can have a situation in my relationship, and that situation, until I learn a lesson, it'll show up everywhere. It'll show up at work. It'll show up in public spaces with people I don't know. Yeah. It'll show up on, TV shows or conversations. You and I will be talking, and I'll be like, we haven't talked about that. How did you know? Like, yeah.
That happens at least once a week.
Yeah. But that's kind of, life kind of reflecting back to you what you need. You just have to be listening.
Yeah.
So that's what work is doing for me. It's not, I mean, all of work definitely is changing and has changed, and COVID has definitely accelerated it. But it's just, it's reflecting, a lot more to me about how I sit in all of this.
So what's the plan then to get out of it? Or to move, or maybe not get out of it, to move differently in it?
Yeah, I think for me, some of the work that I need to do is just getting back to some basic stuff around things like like I was always clear about, we talked about the plan, the 5-year plan. Like I've always had that. Or a vision board.
Oh yeah.
Or
Oh my God.
had
You've
some,
always had a vision
I've
board.
always done that kind of stuff.
Which I would be like, what?
And over the last 5 years, I've just not really done it. I've just been coasting. I wouldn't say coasting.
no,
I've just been.
I didn't know. I've never known, and this may be true, it may not be true, but I've never heard you discuss that you and Steven is his husband, have a vision board together.
We don't, not together. I think how the vision shows up. So my vision board centers around faith, family, finance, fitness, friends, and fun. And so each of them,
You do one every year, or you used to do one.
I used to
every
do
year.
them every year, and I stopped at 45.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Or the last one I did was at 45. And so how it would show up in the relationship is, so when it comes to finance, I would have goals around finance, whether it was saving, like at one point it was saving 10% of my income. And so then, because we share finances, we would come to the table and talk about, okay, I want to save 10%, what are your thoughts about it? How can we get there? Like we would talk about it. So that's how it would, how my vision would kind of play into the relationship. And then Stephen would come with his own thoughts and ideas.
So in retrospect, when you did these vision boards, how much of it typically, on average, came to fruition?
All of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
I never knew. Well, because I never.
And that's kind of how I left it. Like once I achieved everything, then I just, because you said recently to me, I haven't heard you talk about the budget in a long time.
Yeah.
Because there was
Every
a
time
moment
I would ask Wendell, like, let's go do da 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 da. We're on a budget. And I would be like, what? We're in our 50s. Who's budgeting? But okay.
and I stopped saying it over the last several years, and it's because we